right, I am back. It has been a minute since I have filmed a YouTube video. If I'm being entirely honest, I took a little bit of a break because I felt like any advice I gave at the moment was maybe not going to be the best advice. I honestly went through a period where I felt like I shouldn't be talking about anything or giving any advice because I wasn't handling things as well as I wanted to be, and I was just going through a little bit of a rough patch. So I just kind of took a break from filming, and to be honest, I wish I had filmed something earlier and talked about what I was going through. I'm doing a bit better now, so I feel like I can talk about it, but I wish that I had said something while I was going through it and kind of like talked it through for anyone who needed that, but that's okay. So yeah, I'm barely on the other side of it now, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's been going on. I wanted to chat a little bit about breakups and self-forgiveness and handling emotions and identifying kind of emotions and reactions as a neurodivergent individual. One of the questions I got, it was a while ago, was asking about emotions and how I know if my emotions are like real or whether they're stemming from ADHD or trauma. And I will address that later on in the video as it kind of relates to what I'm going to be talking about. So if you're the person who asked that question, I will be addressing it, and I am so sorry for taking so long. I guess I realized in the advice department that just because I wasn't handling things as well as I wanted to, and I felt like I couldn't be giving out advice, or I shouldn't be, like my experiences were still completely valid, and that doesn't mean there weren't things that I learned that I can talk about now. I don't think I've like really mastered anything enough to be giving really concrete advice, but I can just talk about my experiences, what I went through, and how I handled it and what I've realized about myself. So yeah, I've been going through a breakup recently. That's one of the things that's been going on, and it has been a process. I understand breakups are hard for absolutely everyone in their own unique ways. In my particular way, it's been difficult due to my history and the things that I have experienced in the past, kind of working through my reactions, whether they're based on this specific situation, whether it's because I've been reliving other things that are not even correlated to this, but they kind of bring it out in me. So that's what I've been sorting through. I will say one of the most difficult things for me in this process is self-forgiveness. Forgiving myself for the ways that I reacted in the relationship and in the breakup, things that I wish I could change, that I would go back and undo or redo if I could. And the difficult thing is that I can't undo them, redo them. It's past the point where I could even talk to that person about them. And that's really, really hard to sit with for me personally, as someone who's an overthinker, very empathetic, and prone to perhaps a detrimental level of self-awareness. So it's hard to kind of just feel those feelings and not act on them. It's at the point where I can do nothing literally but forgive myself. And so I'm kind of in the middle of a two-step process right now in relation to that. I think blame after a breakup is a tricky thing. I think that blaming the other person a lot of times can be easier. And a lot of times when we see the end of relationships, sometimes all we can see is what the other person did. And it's really hard to acknowledge the things that you yourself did that potentially or definitively led to the end of a relationship. That's something that's really, really hard to live with. And I think, blaming someone else can make it easier to process. I think having that anger can make things feel more productive. Like when I was going through the anger stage, still going through sometimes, like I would go on a walk, I would go on a run. Anger kind of set my energy in motion, and it was what allowed me to kind of keep moving, just keep swimming. And then when the sadness set in, it was a lot harder to be productive. And when I was angry at myself, I kind of lost that momentum and I didn't really know what to do with it. So I just want to say, if you're someone who's exceptionally self-aware, if you're an overthinker, if you are very empathetic and you realize like something you did wrong, having that awareness can eat you alive. So I'm going to talk about a little bit kind of what I'm doing to not let it consume me. And my mom recognized this in me. She said, the feelings of you yourself feeling like a bad person, those are the things that you're struggling with the most. And those are the things that are hardest for you to sit with, which is why they're consuming you so badly. And she said one of the hardest things you'll probably ever do is learn to sit with those things. It's terrifying. It's really painful. But once you're able to sit with those feelings, like, life will get so much easier in general. So yeah, right now what I'm doing is just kind of trying to acknowledge the emotions. I did these things wrong. I did hurtful things. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I was reacting based on what I knew and what I could do at the time and what I thought was right and protecting myself. I can't change the past. And I am okay feeling this feeling, and I know it's safe to feel this feeling because it will pass and I won't feel this way forever. And I'm in the middle of that right now, so I haven't gotten to step 2. But step 2 for me, hopefully, is forgiving myself. And I have to say right now, I'm not entirely sure what that will look like. I'm not sure it's going to be a moment where I'm like, I forgive myself. But I think it's going to be a process, and I think I'll feel it in a while. And I think what it will look like is one day I will realize that it just wasn't meant to be, and it needed to happen, and I needed to lose something important to realize my reactions and the way that I was interacting in that type of relationship was coming from a very unhealed place. And I think I will recognize that I have the power to change it and move forward, and I can bring it into my next relationship, and I can bring it into my relationship with myself, to know that I can do bad things and still be okay and still like myself. I think that's what self-forgiveness is going to look like for me. And I'm not sure when that will come, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. A realization that I had also while I've kind of been pondering this breakup is that a lot of this, like struggling to forgive myself and having a hard time letting go of what I could have done differently, stems from just kind of a deep discomfort with myself and who I am right now as a person. I have a hard time kind of feeling my feelings and not doing anything about it, because I historically for a while haven't really liked or even really known who I am, like down to my core. And I feel like so many people I know just know who they are and they're okay being by themselves and they enjoy this time by themselves, but I'm just not like that. And that's something that I really, really would like to work on. I think kind of in this vein, I feel like I've gotten to the point where things have happened to me in the past and it almost feels like I wear my pain as a badge of honor. And sometimes it's even the first thing that I show people, because it's become so entrenched in my identity. It the things that have happened, my trauma and things, they shape the way I first talk to people when I meet them. And as relationships progress, it kind of has shaped every part of those processes for me. And I used to just feel well, I'm just always going to be this way. That's what happened to me. Everyone who's been through something similar, that's just kind of who they are. But I am at the point now where I don't want that to be like the main part of my identity. I would so much rather be known for my accomplishments and how I lift people up instead of being so quiet and looking and feeling like I'm in pain all the time and waiting for people to notice it, because it's all I can ever think of anyone knowing about me, all I ever want people to know about me. But I would so much rather people know that I am kind and I am creative and I love spending time with animals. I always used to think those were like so basic things. I thought that my like trauma and my pain made me unique and interesting, but I just don't want to be that person anymore. And I know that like awareness and action are two completely different things, and acting on it is going to be a lot harder than noticing it, but that's just where I'm at right now. And this is also related to kind of like being alone with my thoughts, that kind of thing. Recently I was talking to my mom about how much of a hard time I was having, and she put a lot of things in perspective for me, and she kind of checked me on some things, and she basically told me, you're allowed to stop punishing yourself. You're allowed to enjoy the time you spend alone with yourself. The time you spend alone doesn't have to be criticizing everything you've done wrong, every relationship that's ended, or something that has happened partially because of your actions. You're allowed to give your mind a rest. It's not a bad thing, because living with knowing you've done something wrong or hurtful is painful enough. It's punishment in itself. If you know what you've done wrong, if you're actively working on changing it, that's all you can do. Punishing yourself and feeling like all of your free time has to go towards becoming better, not repeating past mistakes, is exhausting. Like, I always felt like my time by myself, I had to be improving on something. Like, I had to be improving my physical health if I was walking or running, which was also a bit of a punishment. Or I felt like I needed to be journaling or meditating or analyzing everything I've ever done that I would regret doing and how I could do it differently, how I could change, how I could improve. Like, that consumed my mind. And when I was exhausted, I was just afraid of spending time by myself, because I was like, I don't have the energy to work on myself right now, but I feel like that's all I can do in my free time, because I don't want to be with myself as I am. Like, I don't like myself as I am. And so that's something that I'm trying to change. I'm trying to enjoy time with myself and rediscover things that I like about myself and that I love about others and the world around me. Like, when I was a kid, I would just spend hours and hours outside with the animals on my family's farm. And as time went by, I just kind of stopped doing that. So I'm trying to get back to that again. I'm trying to get back to the things that like really sparked joy in me as a kid, and that when I was younger, I used to just unapologetically love about myself. So that's kind of my goal right now. That's my journey. So I just want to say, if you're someone who's kind of similar to that and you feel like all of your alone time has to be spent improving in some way, it's okay to just give yourself a rest. It's okay. If you know about it and you're working on it, you're doing everything you can possibly do. I wrote a note here for myself that I wanted to make sure to say in this video, so I'm just going to read it so that I can know that it's like correct. I said, I always thought that if I got to a place where I was the best version of myself physically and mentally, I could finally be happy with who I am. But the issue with that kind of conditional self-love is that no amount of improvement will ever be enough, and the finish line will keep moving, and I'll never be enough for myself. So what I'm trying to do is like myself the way I am. Realize that I'm enough just as I am, while also trying to improve. Yes, I want to work on exercising more, being healthier, being less emotionally reactive, but those are all journeys. If I wait until I'm perfect, I'll never like myself. I have to be okay with who I am while I am in the process of growing and learning, because the growing and learning is lifelong, and I want to be confident in who I am no matter where I am in that process. Those are just some of the things that I've learned And that was kind of an aha moment that I had the other day. The last thing that I want to add is the answer to the question I got a while ago. Again, I apologize. Asking, how do I know if my emotions are real or trauma related or ADHD? The first thing I'll say is I think all emotions are real. And also, I don't entirely know the answer to this. I've been trying to figure it out myself as I process my relationship and my reactions and my emotions and everything related to this relationship. I will say, I don't think a feeling or an emotion is ever completely manufactured by something like trauma or neurodivergence. I think that emotion will exist no matter where you are mentally. And I don't think emotions are something that can really be changed a whole ton, but I think your reactions and how deeply you feel those emotions and how long you sit with those emotions can be impacted by things like trauma or ADHD, anxiety, things like that. I think that's the important distinction, the emotion versus the thought or the action that comes from it. So I'll just give an example to kind of demonstrate the point. So if you're with your significant other, let's say, and they say something critical to you, like criticizing you, maybe it was meant to be a joke, but the way it came out hurt your feelings and it was like a little bit snarky, and you shut down. I think that core emotion of feeling hurt, feeling judged is completely valid. I'm not sure there's anyone who probably wouldn't feel that emotion based on the delivery, but the reaction would probably change based on your past, your history. So like internalizing that comment instead of laughing it off could stem from maybe a history of being criticized really harshly in the past. Kind of teaching yourself that the criticisms you've received are directly related to your identity and they're who you are. Like that kind of history can make you internalize something, make you maybe a little bit less resilient to those kinds of things that other folks who don't have that history might just laugh off. Or if you're like me in the past and you shut down, like physically, emotionally, just kind of like stop talking, pull into yourself, go quiet. If you shut down instead of like advocating for yourself, saying that kind of hurt my feelings, that could be indicative of maybe a past where you didn't feel super safe expressing a boundary or expressing your emotions, standing up for yourself. Like all of these little things that maybe we don't even realize can impact the way that we react to other people and the way that we show up for ourselves when things happen to us. Even if they seem like insignificant things, they can feel significant based on your history. So kind of in summation, to answer that question, I don't think your emotions would change if you didn't have ADHD or didn't have past trauma. Like I think it might sting still. I think it probably would sting. But if you were able to kind of work through some of it, probably wouldn't sting for as long. Probably wouldn't feel it as deeply. You might have a more lighthearted reaction if you were able to work on those things. And I know that that's not easy. That's something that I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to be better at letting things roll off my back. And it's a lot easier said than done, I will say. So I guess my final piece of advice on this is I try very, very hard not to qualify my emotions. I try not to label my emotions as good or bad because they just are. I think you can't do many things about your emotions. You can't really make them go away. But what I try not to do is let my emotions consume me and create actions and reactions that I know I'll regret later. And I think the core of that is learning to feel safe with your feelings and that you don't have to act on every emotion that floats across your brain. Like I try to picture it like a river with rocks or grass or whatever floating by. I'm like I'm a very visual person, so I'll close my eyes and I'll see them and I'll be like, okay, it's sadness. Maybe it's gonna sit there for a while and I'm just gonna wait for it to float by, it's okay if it doesn't float immediately by. You don't have to push it along, like just let it be, because it's normal. I think that's all I have for this video. I'm sorry if this was all over the place. I did write a lot of this down because I didn't want to be as scatterbrained as sometimes I am with my videos. I wanted to be kind of more clear and concise and organize my thoughts a little bit more. And I've also realized when it comes to like things I'm going through that are a bit painful, I kind of lose memory. Like I kind of forget what happened. I forget what I want to say. I recently realized there's a reason for that from therapy, which I can talk about later. But thank you for watching. If you got all the way to the end of this, thank you. And also I'm sorry because it was kind of a ramble. But if you're going through anything similar, my heart goes out to you. Please reach out if you have any questions. If you just want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk it through with you. I'm not a mental health professional, but these are just my experiences and what I can say from years of therapy and trying to fix some things. So yeah, I'll hopefully be back with another video soon. And yeah, if you're going through this process, best of luck to you.